This is the meeting of the Parking Authority of Fairfield, the regular meeting scheduled for Thursday, March 25th at 7:30 p.m. This meeting is being held via teleconference. Okay, Rich, it's all yours.
Okay, great. I guess first order here is just to approve the meeting minutes from last month. I know they were circulated a couple of weeks ago. Was there any comments or questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
Let's make a motion to approve.
I'll take a motion to approve. This is Rich.
I second it.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a chair report, which I have nothing new to report here, which then leads us to, the next item here, which is the office report, which is, do you want to start the audit here?
Yes. So I'll introduce Mike Ganino and Daisy Acevita from PKF O'Connor, and they will be presenting the audit package and going over, the key financials and so on. Okay, Mike, Daisy, go ahead.
Excellent, Eileen. Thank you, and thank you everyone for allowing us to be a part of the meeting. I hope everyone's doing well. So we wanted to start with just a brief overview of the status of the audit. So the audit has been completed. The field work went well for the most part. We had all of our issues resolved. The work has been reviewed. It's been through our quality control. Today is one of the steps in the required communications when we review the audit package and answer any questions that the board has. And then once we have the signed management representation letter, then the audit will be released. So the audit, as it stands right now, and we fully expect it to be issued with an unmodified opinion. So an unmodified opinion is what a layperson would consider to be a good opinion. It means that the financial statements are materially correct. And when we say materially correct, the question that we ask is, what would a third party change their mind if there was a number or a disclosure in the financial statements that was incorrect? And because we're numbers people, we have to put a number figure on the materiality level. So the materiality level for this audit was $42,000. And that simply means that we could accumulate $42,000 worth of misstatements in the financial statements, and they would still be materially correct. As part of our disclosures and our required communications, we summarize all of the misstatements that we have. And there's one misstatement, and I'll let Daisy talk about that in the required communications. So Daisy, you can start that section.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well, and thank you for taking the time to let us present. As part of the audit, we are required to communicate to those charged with governance certain things, and I'm just going to highlight some of them. Part of it is our responsibility as the auditors that we form and express an opinion on the financial statements, that we obtain reasonable assurance that the statements are free of material misstatements, accumulate and communicate any uncorrected misstatements. We are required to maintain professional skepticism and also communicate any audit-related matters to the board that we feel are significant. In addition, all of this was disclosed in the engagement letter that we had issued back in October. And in the engagement letter, it also lists out not only our responsibilities as the auditors, but also responsibilities of the management, which part of it is establishing and maintaining an effective internal control, complying with laws and regulations, providing us with financial records and related information. And also the board is responsible for setting proper tone at the top and designing and implementing policies and controls to prevent and detect fraud. The other requirement is that to let you know that of significant estimates that are in the financial statements. One of them is the allowance for doubtful accounts. And that's what it is. It's an estimate, and typically this is based on how the collections are of the receivable at year-end. And this allowance for doubtful accounts did not change from the prior year. It's at $10,000, and that's mainly due to the collection rate being consistent from year to year. I think it was about approximately 92%. The other estimate that's significant in the financial statements is depreciation expense. So any fixed asset, capitalized assets that are placed in service, it has a certain life and it gets depreciated over the life of that asset. We did not encounter any difficulties during the audit in performing our audit with management, no difficulties there. Mike had mentioned the uncorrected misstatement and corrected misstatement. So the corrected misstatements, typically, they're your typical adjustments such as depreciation that was adjusted to actual. We also had the AR, recording of the AR daily fees, which is based on reports that are obtained from CDI. We had a reclassification of equipment that were purchased. They were originally recorded in the capital outlay account, which is an expense account, but reclassified as a fixed asset on the balance sheet. The other one that's significant is the recording of the passport management prepaid portion of the subscription, because the subscription ran over the fiscal year of the parking authority. So those are the corrected adjustments. The uncorrected misstatement relates to a payment, and oddly enough, the payment was to us, and it was a double payment that was caught subsequently and fixed. So that's the only misstatement that was noted. And that was for approximately $4,200. So that amount is substantially less than what our materiality is. So the financial statements are not being materially misstated because of this one item that we noted that was not recorded in the proper period. We did not have any disagreements with management in connection with the audit, financial accounting, and reporting. Lastly, we are required to let you know that our firm and us as the auditors are independent of the parking authority. I think that's pretty much it. Mike's going to go through some of the financial highlights and internal controls over financial reporting.
Sure. Thanks, Daisy. Did anyone have any questions on any of the corrected or uncorrected misstatements?
Maybe just one question. This is Rich.
Sure.
Just high level, just give us a background of why $45,000 is a materiality number. I'm sure there's a science behind that, but sure. We're fine with the adjustment, but just why is it 45 is your materiality threshold? Sure.
So when we're trying to get a number as to what that materiality figure is, we look towards the balance sheet and the income statement, and we typically take the larger of those two. We apply a statistical calculation to it, and then that is the materiality, and then from that number, certain things get based off of it. For instance, how we're going to test, what balances we're test. It'll have an impact on our sample sizes because we're not testing 100% of anything. So it really starts from the larger of the balance sheet, the assets, or the revenues.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so one of the other reports that's in the package is the internal control over financial reporting. So as part of our audit, we have an understanding of how the internal control system works. And for what we're trying to do is we're not forming an opinion on the internal control. So this report that is, I believe, page 8 of the packet, I'm sorry, it's not page 8. I'll give you the correct page number, is if we were to discover one of 3 areas of internal control deficiencies. So the first one is just a deficiency in internal control. The second is a higher one, and that is called a significant deficiency. So a significant deficiency is a deficiency or a combination of them that's in the internal control system that is not as big as a material weakness, which I'll tell you about, but it's important enough to mention in writing to those charged with governance. The material weakness is the item, and just so you know, there were none of these. There were no material weaknesses in the financial statements in the internal control. And the definition of a material weakness is something that won't be prevented or detected or corrected on a timely basis, and that is material or significant enough to have an impact. As part of our testing and as part of our audit planning, we look at cash disbursements, we look at cash receipts, we look at the payroll section, and we do what's called a walkthrough from start to finish of a transaction. So from the time a check is requested to the time it's cut to the time it's cleared to the time it gets reviewed and reconciled in the bank statement. For cash receipts, the time that it gets recorded as being owed to us, whether it's day parking or permit or rental, to the time it's collected and recorded, deposited, and then cleared the bank. Payroll is just that. We look to see employees, what their pay rates are, and then that they're in the reports properly. And the last area that we look at is revenue. And for revenue, what we did is we took a sample of day parking and we took a sample of permits, traced each one back to its supporting documentation, and everything that we had tested was within our expectations of the support that would be required. So, for the highlights of the financial statements, and given that these are not the most relevant numbers right now, I'm just going to go through some of the highlights and then maybe just have a discussion on what this means towards the future. So if you were to look at the packet that you have, and it's the financial statements, it's got a draft over it. If you were to look at page number 5, it's a 3-year comparison of revenues and expenses. And this section of the financial statements is called the Management's Discussion and Analysis, the MD&A. So these were within our expectations. For 2020, the parking fees went down. We had anticipated that halfway down, where it's police and outside services, that there was a significant drop in that expense as well. And then with the rent is really tied to the lease with the town. And we had anticipated that because it's now month to month, that the expense was going to be less than it was in 2019 and 2018. It doesn't really matter when these items are paid. They get recorded when they're incurred. So payment of the expenses and collection of the revenue does really not impact when it hits the financial statements. So if you would go to page number 8, and that is the statement of net position, I just wanted to point out some key areas, and the first one is the third item down, investments. The significant drop in that is because we'll find a significant increase in the fixed assets, because there was money and funds that were taken out of that account in order to pay for the paving. So if you were to look where it says capital assets, almost all the way down right before total assets, you'll see that that account went from $473,000 to $921,000. If you continue down, there's unearned revenue, and you'll see that it went from $757,000 to $274,000. And what that means is that any deferred revenue that was collected at a point in time before the end of June 30th, 2019, that relates to the next year's revenue. It's just collected ahead of time. So when we sell parking permits in May, we're collecting for the next year's revenue. So if you were to look the $274,332, that is money that we collected in the current year for the next year's permits. All right, and there's just a few more items that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Page number 9, second item down, parking fees, daily parking. That, of course, we all understand the pandemic caused from mid-March all the way to the end of the year, to the fiscal year, that there was no parking. So that was within our expectations, too, and we tested that and saw that there was no parking physically after a certain date. And the rest of the financial statements, the only other part that I think I'd draw your attention to is page 10, and that's the cash flow. If you look under cash flows from investing activities, you'll see the large capital purchase of $564,000. That's paving. And then if you look all the way at the bottom, you'll see capital purchases included in accounts payable, that $14,750. That rounds out the capital purchases for 2020 year end. Does anyone have any questions on the numbers? No? Okay. So I'll just move on through the financial statements disclosures. Page 13, I just want to note that the investments are recorded at fair value. So it's whatever the value is at the end of the period, in this case the end of the year, that is what they're recorded at. And if the majority of the investments that we have are in the short-term investment fund. Okay, if you were to look at page 16, note number 2, it's a summary of what we call credit risk, and that's for the deposits. And it shows that we've got $250,000 that is insured from the FDIC, and anything above that, there's an element of risk. So we just note the amounts that are outside of that $250,000, and management does not think that there's a significant risk. We would agree with that as well. And the final is page number 17, and these are the contingencies. So the contingency number 1 on every financial statement is the coronavirus. What has happened to this year, what's anticipated to happen going forward, and how this is going to impact operations, whether for us it's a decrease in day parking, non-utilizing permit parking, rental agreements that may be subject to a deferral or a forgiveness, and then really how that impacts operations going forward and what a recovery from this would look like. For the rest of the financial statements, you can read through those. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them either now or at a different time. But what I wanted to move to right now, if there's if there's no questions, does anyone have any questions on the financial statements, the numbers, or the disclosures? Okay, so the last part of our presentation deals with other topics of importance. And again, it's operational-wise with COVID. And so some of the points that we wanted to talk about that's going to impact the year that we're currently in is the new parking system. So some of the and I'm sure that you guys have heard this already from Eileen's discussions, is that a good chunk of the revenue that we had in past years was late fees. So we'd anticipate that late fee revenue is going to go down. We'd also anticipate that the collection rate is going to go up because of the way that the day parking is going to be collected. With COVID going forward, you know, it's an uncertainty. And I've been looking at different articles as to what the recovery rate's going to be for people who are actually working in an office. In my office, there's 40, 45 people. In any given day, we probably have 25 people in our office. But we have an office in Midtown that's been closed since the pandemic. And we have other offices around the tri-state area. And the majority of people are not working in the office. So that's going to continue to impact the parking revenue. We did have a surplus in 2020. I haven't seen what the year-to-date information looks like for the 2021 year end, but I'll be interested in seeing that after we talk. And then I'm sure, and I've seen this in the work papers, that we have made arrangements that a lot of businesses have difficulties. I do think that one of the areas that most businesses are doing, and this is going to be relevant with the negotiations for the lease, is the parking authority's cash flow should be kept in a position where you're going to be able to maintain all the operations. And that may be where there is some type of negotiations for the rent going forward for the town. I think it's something that should be at least looked at and talked about because depending on when the recovery is and people are going to start parking again, it's going to have a significant impact, obviously, on the revenues that the parking authority can generate. Did anyone have anything else that they wanted to discuss?
No, I mean, we echo your last comment there, and we hope to be successful over the next month with the town about the rent payment for December that we have to make. June, excuse me. Yeah, upcoming June payment, so in December. So.
Yeah, and we've seen that. You know, we've seen this with so many of the companies that we work with. Is that, you know, there's a need to be fair, equitable on what entities and organizations can pay, given that the cash flow is not there, and no one wants to see the parking authority deteriorate or parking lots deteriorate. I mean, you guys do a fantastic job of keeping up and making it a great experience for people when they park. And I think that the goal of everyone, all the stakeholders, would be to continue that.
We agree.
Okay. Is there any other questions that I can answer for anyone? So I think one last point is that the goal of having the audit done is to have it done when it's still relevant. And there was some issues with the pandemic and some of the information that we were receiving, not from Eileen's group, that was directly affected by what other companies are dealing with the pandemic. So doing this presentation on March 25th is not the most ideal because it doesn't really give the board the information that is as relevant as it needs to be. The good thing is that Eileen is producing reports and presentations for all the meetings that are relevant, but I believe we would be able to get back on track for next year. So a schedule for a typical audit would be year-end closed right after June 30th, and then we would come for field work in August, and then we'd be able to issue, say like early October. Then the numbers are more relevant than they are right now.
Yes, we agree. And given what we're still going through, it's even more important that hopefully you can finalize it by no later than October 31st of this year. I mean, that would be a great goal for all of us to have it on this side of the year. So thank you for your time.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. I think we're pretty. I think we're fine with all the report, and I mean, thank you for coordinating this with the team. We know it takes a lot of your time and effort, and I guess thank you for all your support.
It's our pleasure.
They're a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, and the same thing. And I know, Eileen, I know that you're on the call too, and we're just going to say, I don't want to embarrass you, but the work and the quality of information that we get from Eileen and the people who are working for her makes the audit go very smoothly. Everything we ask for when it comes from Eileen is given to us, and the business sense of how things move and work and develop and are thought out are just like any other working, successful business. So, Eileen, thank you for all of your help while we're doing the field work and afterwards as well.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll see you in August.
We'll be, and you know what? We'll probably be there before then, so that we can get some planning done, so that we can jump right into it and get whatever information we need requested from third parties, and I think it'll be good to go. And I have no doubt that there'll be a presentation in October of 2021.
Okay.
Great. We look forward to it. Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate your time.
I'll talk to you
Everyone,
both.
thank you very much. Bye.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. So let me move. Rich, you ready for me to move on to the office report?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So in March, we sold 9 more Fairfield permits. Their total permits for both Fairfield and Southport is 1,993, and there remains no wait list. Day parking, people are parking on the app and kiosk more often, and we're getting good feedback from customers that saying that they like the convenience of being able to pay in multiple days. We've had a few issues with the LPR where it did not show that somebody had actually paid, but we work with our vendor, and I have to say the vendor's been very responsive, and we have weekly conference calls with them, and so they've been able to really get everything working well. The total Fairfield and Southport parkers is about 90 a day during the month of March, which is about a 7% utilization of the lots. The second thing I want to talk about is the Fairfield, New York westbound rental space. I spoke with the tenant late yesterday, and he is very, very happy with the location and really wants to make plans to stay there for a long time. And he would like to amend his lease so that it reflects the added rental space at the monthly rate that you decided last month, which was $1,000 a month. He said that there were a couple things that he was wondering, because he's I guess he has another office, and he tries to have like a consistent look to his offices. And he wanted to talk to us about the mural, and could that be painted over, or could that have a covering, some kind of protective covering, and then be painted over on that way so that he had a different kind of look in his office. I told him that, we could talk. I talked to the board about that, but I don't think that should hold up our going forward with the space, and he agreed. I had met with Public Works a couple weeks ago and showed them what we'd like to do with that space. They were going to get some different estimates, mainly the electrical, because you have to put in additional outlets and everything to meet code. So I sent them a note yesterday after I spoke with Dave and said, the tenant's very eager to get in there. I want to get this out to the state right away. So could you, try and get me an estimate, a rough estimate as soon as possible. Then my plan is I've talked to the state about it, but they want to see the final the final plan and the final numbers, and then they'll be able to make a decision. I'm not expecting any issues, but just they might have to go forward and talk to them about it. So I'm hoping I can get this all coordinated within the next 2 weeks or something. I don't know if it's possible to do it that fast, but if I can, I will. And then I could talk to the board about an amendment to his lease to reflect the additional space and the added rent. Okay. He also asked me about he's the only tenant that does not have a parking space. All of our other tenants have gotten one parking space, and he uses Rise and Shines, which works fairly well because usually Rise and Shine is gone by early afternoon. But occasionally it's been a little bit of an issue. He's had to park out somewhere else. There is one space that I could squeeze out for him. So when the weather gets a little warmer, and I could have Public Works restripe that, what's right now a hatch area, restripe that little space. I could turn that into a tenant space for him without losing any permit or day parking space.
Great. That makes sense if we can.
Yeah. It's kind of on the corner, like when you turn to go under Umpqua, over by the bike lockers. So it's right over there.
Okay. I think I know where, so good.
Okay. So that was really great news about Dave, I thought. And now I wanted to move on on the agenda. I had a policy confirmation. I thought that we have the Parking Authority had a policy on maternity leave, but it turns out it does not. Most of our policies follow use the town policies as a guideline, and we have an employee who is pregnant and is due in mid to late May, and she asked me about the maternity leave policy, and that's when I realized we don't have one. So I looked at the town's policies. There's two union policies. One offers 10 weeks paid maternity leave. One offers 8 weeks paid. And I talked to HR about if there was a policy for non-union people. And he said that there is no separate policy. They provide leave pursuant to FMLA. Parking Authority, because it's so small, I think Connecticut's cutoff is 75 employees. Federal cutoff is 50 employees. We are not covered by FMLA, so we should come up with a specific policy. And so I'm going to turn the conversation over to you to decide on what kind of policy you want to put in place.
Rich, you have anything you want to put on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I know the town employees, like you said, I mean, are all covered by union basic, and some of the, policies there. I mean, I would like to be as consistent as possible. This is obviously the first time we've dealt with this, which, we're in uncharted waters here, but I always say let's be fair and consistent, but, I don't want to do anything less than at least what the town has as a policy, but I'll defer to everyone else for their thoughts.
So just as a reminder, there's 2 union contracts, and one offers 10 weeks paid and one offers 8 weeks paid. And I guess it's just the difference in union management that we're able to negotiate that.
Mm-hmm.
But Eileen, keep in mind though, to be fair, your parking authority always has followed only the town hall employees union. It never followed mid-management. Is that what you mean by the 2 unions you're not specifying? One is town hall employees and the other is mid-management, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
So you have to let the board know that though, to be fair.
Yeah, one is the professional and technical employees, and the other one the town. So the 8 weeks is the professional technical, and the 10 weeks is the town.
How many employees are we talking about?
We have one that is would be eligible for.
And who's not a member of any union?
No, the parking authority is not are not members of the union, and we're not town employees.
Right, but they're not a member of a union. So why you can have a union. You can have a one-member union. You can have a one-member bargaining unit. This is going down at 5. I mean, I don't care. You know what I mean? Do whatever. 8. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this, but.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I mean, 8 weeks sounds reasonable to me, given some of the background you provide, Eileen. And you're right, it's one person. I think 8 weeks sounds fair, but unless others feel differently, I'll defer to you.
I mean, I think 8 weeks is. I don't want it to sound weird, but I think it's very generous. I mean, my company doesn't offer that. We have 60 employees. I don't know. And people, do. I think we have half, and then paid family leave or something through our insurance company. I'm not 100% because I'm not really that involved in the HR, but I think 8 weeks is fine.
Okay. All right. Do we make a motion?
Yes. We need a motion.
All right. This is Rich. I'll make a motion to set our policy for maternity leave at 8 weeks.
I'll second it. Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
That was Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Danford. Okay, thank you.
Rich, you got to call it to a vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay. So that finishes the Parking Authority office report, unless there's any questions.
Nope.
Okay. So then we'll go into executive session. I think I don't. Let's see. Do you have to make a motion to go in executive session? I know you have to.
Yeah, you do, Eileen.
I believe you do.
Please.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is.
Yep.
This is Rich. Gonna make the motion to go in executive session.
At 8:12 p.m. Yep. The second.
Second. Dan.
Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Goodbye. Have a nice evening, guys.
Okay.
Thank
I'll see
you.
you.
Eileen, I'm dropping off now. All right. Take care.
I'll come see you tomorrow. All right.
You will.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Hold on. Okay.
This is Rich Fitzgerald. We just came out of the executive session, and no decisions were made.
No votes, no motions.
No votes were made. No motions yet. Mm-hmm.
And it's 8:30.
Yep. At 8:33 here, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, who seconded
Good night,
it?
everybody. Dan Ford did.
Dan did.
If I would, so I snuck it in there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
You're good.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, good.